Conservation Mismatch by Livy Ruka, University of St. Thomas Geography and Environmental Studies student. In the face of climate change, effective conservation is crucial. The most vulnerable species rely on conservationists, and ArcGIS is a tool that can be used to identify conservation mismatch and conservation priorities. Now, so what? Climate change will continue to affect biodiversity and habitat loss, and vulnerable species rely on effective conservation efforts. Effective conservation can be difficult, which is why it is important to use GIS to identify priorities. Scholar Clinton Jenkins proposed his own conservation strategy in the United States. Jenkins understands that habitat loss leads to species extinction, which is why he is concerned with current conservation efforts in the United States. Most protected lands are in the West, but the most vulnerable species are in the Southeast. Jenkins emphasizes the importance of aid from public and private sectors, as well as wide-ranging assessments of reptiles and freshwater fish, and a revision of tree and range maps. He also considers easements as a means to implement effective conservation on private land. However, Christopher Brown of Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America, PNAS, argues against Jenkins that his proposed plan is biologically ineffective and economically inefficient. Brown believes it is most practical to conserve large areas of land. Brown argues that conservationists should have explicit objectives and should prioritize actions, not species or places. There are economic, political, and social constraints to conservation, and it should be directed at all species, not just hotspots. Jenkins defends his plan by arguing that the bang for the buck approach in relation to species is not effective. Existing protected areas are inexpensive and beautiful, but not biologically important. Cost should not be number one on the list because species rely on conservationists. Local factors should be taken into account, and cost and convenience should be opposed above risk of extinction. Community-based local action increases effective conservation efforts, and awareness, education, and training can help the general public to better understand the impacts of local and ecological factors. So, how can GIS be used to accurately identify the most vulnerable and biologically important species in the U.S. that are not protected? And how do federally protected lands match up with these conservation priorities? First, I used the GIS hillshade tool to create a new elevation layer from the DEM layer. Then, I used the Feature to Point tool to create a layer showing points of protected public lands in the United States. This map conveys elevation overlaid by protected points. Many protected points are in areas with high elevation, which is the western United States. Next, I created a model of neighborhood protection. The Point Density tool gathered data from the Protected Points layer to convey neighborhood protection. This map depicts neighborhood hotspots of protected public lands. The Protected Points layer is 50% transparent in order to see where the highest densities and points overlap. Darker green conveys bigger hotspot. According to Jenkins, the highest priority conservation areas are in the southeast, conveyed by dark green. The raster calculator tool added together the amphibian, bird, mammal, and tree layers to create a conservation priorities output. Similar to Jenkins' map, the result displays the highest priority areas in the southeast. This region is a conservation hotspot for the United States. Now, here is a GIF to show the similarities between Jenkins' map and the final conservation priorities map. This proves that conservation efforts should be focused in the southeast, where the most vulnerable species are. Thank you for listening.